begin mass production on Lothal within the next 6 weeks.
You're just full of fun facts.
If there was ever an episode of Star Wars that wasn't the most exhilarating viewing experience but possesses some fundamental information regarding every moving plate involved in the 20-minute feature that calls on, pushes toward and forecasts everything we're set to see from our intrepid heroes and their assortment of antagonists, then this has my vote.
I love it when a plan comes together.
We begin this one on the plains of Lothal as Kanan is trying to teach Ezra about connection through the Force and how a Jedi is never alone so long as they're open to all around them and allow the Force to flow through them, to call upon the natural resources of their environment, or wildlife in this case, as Ezra has a rocky start trying to call and tame a loth cat, which Kanan manages to prove can be achieved despite Ezra's resistance to this lesson. Kanan wishes to know what's going on with the lad as he's a little more antagonistic than usual and won't be able to progress with his training if he doesn't let his guard down, but Ezra tells him to back off for now. Fuck off! Following the intro, we head to Old Joe's bar where Imperial pilots are searching for a Rhodian who Ezra recognises as Sibo, an old family friend, and the plot thickens, where Ezra wants to track him down and determine why the Empire are after him specifically, but gets a little assist following a vision he has of the old comm tower that indicates where Sibo is hiding. Later that day, the crew move to crash Empire Day celebrations, following an Imperial transmission announcing that the Empire is staging a parade to commemorate the 15-year anniversary of its existence.
Fuck.
To give themselves cover as they try to locate Sibo whilst distracting the Imperials who are actively searching for him as well, and the unfortunate ruling has been made that it's mandatory to join the festivities. The distraction ends though with Kanan and Sabine blowing up a debuting TIE fighter model, sending the parade into disarray, with Zeb just missing a shot on the Grand Inquisitor and Agent Callus, and they quickly make a break for it, with the Imperials deducing that it was the Spectres who caused this.
That's an astute observation.
Ezra directs the group to his homestead whilst Hera tries to find them another way out of the city, and it's here where the gang finds Sibo in an underground comm setup below Ezra's old home. But Sibo is discombobulated from being fitted with an AJ-6 Imperial cyborg construct, which is designed to make slaves of citizens more compliant to instructions, and a device we previously saw on Lobot in episode 5. However, they go against the rights of all living creatures, and the Senate dismissed the idea of them to begin with, meaning that the Empire cannot mandate them just yet, which Sabine explains and deduces that Sibo must have volunteered to have this implanted in him, as it turns out he's holding vital information that the Empire don't want getting out, explaining why they're hunting him.
It all makes sense now.
In all the mumbling from Sibo, he catches wind of the gang discussing Ezra's parents, and he clarifies Ezra's birthday is in fact today, informing us of why he's in such a mood as he was born on Empire Day.
Happy birthday, motherfucker!
Ezra, however, refuses to acknowledge Sibo, feeling he betrayed him and his family, choosing to work with the Empire once his parents disappeared rather than trying to stop them.
Strong enough to have it all.
Too weak to take it!
But at the same time, he also has a vision of Sibo trying to reason with his parents to not bring their son into this, but Mira Bridger explains that they are doing this for their son, as he'll never experience a life of autonomy so long as the Empire remain. Ezra retreats upstairs, and Sabine does some digging, finding out Sibo's holding information for upcoming artillery designs, ship schematics and models, and a 5-year plan for Lothal. The Spectres realise though that the Empire are doing door-to-door searches and choose to flee, with a chase taking them to the highway out of the capital that ends with Agent Callus making a daring attempt to stop the crew, but they get on board the Ghost and make a break for hyperspace but are pursued by the Inquisitor and his forces. And as Chopper's circuits are fried from trying to man the guns on the ship, every Spectre takes a station, with Sabine about to leave for her own post as Sibo comes out with a moment of information that tells Ezra and Sabine he knows where the Bridges are.
You couldn't have done that earlier?
I hate you.
Now, that was a lot to try and condense, but before I continue, I'd implore that you go out of your way and pay close attention to this one, as there are little nods to future names, plot points, and we get a little flag in the sand over the running narrative of the show.
Cool.
Among the various schematics, reports, and pieces of information Sabine was able to extract from Sibo, she mentioned a 5-year plan, and that plan is what we're about to watch the crew witness take place on Lothal. From the fuel plants to the factories, Imperial practices and procedures, and even the hunt for the Jedi Temple, which seemingly becomes a part of this plan by the time of Season 4, and we'll see in 2 episodes' time, the 5-year plan you could say is what Dave and co have written for the show, so almost a little meta nod to what we'll see transpire. Empire. This is honestly exciting to discover, as you don't think anything of it initially, but aside from the awareness and foresight you'll have once you've completed the show, this gives us a firm indicator of how far we are from the events of Rogue One and A New Hope.
No, he's got a point.
The bridges remain at the heart of Ezra's progression throughout the show as a reminder of the good within him and the ferocity he carries reflective of them both, with the latter being redirected toward the Empire thanks to Kanan before he succumbs to his emotions and possibly aligns with the dark side, a concern of which we will dabble in the second part of this. We only get to meet them a handful of times through imagery and brief interactions in Season 4's finale, but it's explained repeatedly just how crucial they are to fueling Ezra's life choices now, and in a roundabout way, they got what they wanted for their son, and that would be a life and a choice, both of which he chooses to sacrifice for the sanctity of others, fully aligning with what his parents chose to do with themselves by the end. And I understand many don't like Ezra, but I really respect what the writers were able to achieve with our young Jedi as a new age of mentorship continues with him now, assuming that both Sabine and Ahsoka are able to locate him in the upcoming series. Ezra was taught by the old guard of Jedi in Kanan and Ahsoka, but was never following the traditional practices of a Jedi. He just adhered to their philosophies. Ezra has a unique ability in being able to embrace his emotions and turn them into a right kind of fuel. He starts out as a reckless, undisciplined little shit, but becomes a measured, refined and wise young man that understands what needs to be done to preserve his family by the end, and I truthfully wouldn't mind seeing integrated into Rey's New Order if that's something we have to sit through in the future. But none of this would have occurred without his parents and their sacrifice for him, which is why following Season 2 we are given the heartbreaking discovery for him of what became of them thanks to the former governor of Lothal, Ryder Rosadi. Now we know how Ryder Rosadi will fit into this and what Ezra's parents go on to do for him, we can't forget the one who gave Ezra hope to begin with, but is Ezra's first challenge in dropping those barriers to become one with the Force that Kanan mentioned at the start, and that is Sibo. Sibo as a character is vital for what he has more than who he is, but as a connection to Ezra's parents, he's a big deal for now. We are informed here that Ezra blames him for not doing anything to save his parents when the Empire took them, but as Kanan and Sabine go on to explain, how could he have done anything against the entire Galactic Empire? It takes our dear boy a bit to understand this, but aware of his limitations, Sibo compromised himself and opted to cripple the Empire's intentions as early as possible by retrieving the information they currently possess, and reporting it back to the Rebellion and the Senate as a means to act on their capture and honour what they tried to do, using a device of which is pretty fucked up. For the Empire to want to implement such a device matches what you'd expect of them, but it feels similar to what Dooku and Palps implemented for the creation of the clone army. The difference with our boys is that they steadily developed a conscience and 3 fought, only succumbing to the effects of their programming when Palps uttered those dreaded words.
Execute Order 66. Yes, Lord Sidious.
But the Empire now want to noticeably program and indoctrinate systems with these devices as basically living computers. But as I mentioned, it can only be done on a voluntary basis as the Senate wouldn't approve anything like this. I personally always found Sibo to be rather annoying and I can't really explain why. I think it's the voice, but as a means of spinning that plate regarding the bridges, I appreciate his involvement here. Plus, you can't deny the bravery of him for willingly having one of these implanted in his head. Now on to the smaller things to note before I fuck off. We saw the return of Gold Travis here and Old Joe's that will be answered in just a few episodes' time, and that as well falls in line with Ezra's search for his parents. Kanan's lesson with Ezra about his connection to all living things serves him well in the second half of this and becomes the crux of Ezra's plan to liberate Lothal in the show's final season, making this an excellent setup for his future progression. Then lastly, the pilot that was introduced in the new tie, which I believe the Grand Inquisitor goes on to use, was Baron Valen Ruder, who returns in the later seasons once or twice, but was actually the pilot that Zeb pulled out of the cockpit back in episode 4. So overall, for the first episode to introduce a multifaceted 2-part storyline to the series, I feel this was a resounding success narratively, and provides deep levels of context for our protagonists, but for however much praise I'm giving it, I still don't feel it grabs me. I can't explain what it is, whether it's the pacing, the direction, the fact that it's a 2-parter, which is normally not an issue for me unless it's Avengers Endgame or Beyond the Spider-Verse. Or maybe it's to do with Sibo, but I've never loved this one. The successor to this, however, I think is genuinely fantastic. I think it works extremely well, even if I'm not putting it in my top 3, and the character dynamics are wonderful and really starting to take shape with this one, and to explore Ezra's history and tie his path in with that of the Empire is bold but intentional, now knowing what he goes on to do for the rebellion and the people of Lothal. The presence of the Inquisitor and all other Imperial officers that we've come to know feels, as I mentioned before, incredibly organic and makes the environment lived in and the threat even greater. And for his character, it presses just how special the show is, when even your supposed big bad in typical writing fashion is supposed to be used sparingly to keep the tension, but he's worked in minimally each episode to great effect, and it doesn't remove anything from the danger he poses. That's going to do it for me for this week though, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you like this, hit the thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for more like this down the road, and don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss a video. And until next time everyone, take care, and may the Force be with you.